Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, both online and in person. So we can jump right in. Uh, my speech is shorter because there's less people in person today. So we'll start with Rebecca. And the first question we have is, can you tell us your full name, your position and organization, and a bit about your organization?
Yeah, so my name is Rebecca Crowell. I'm a restorative engagement specialist with Community Justice Society. Justice Society came to be in 1999. Prior to that, it was known as the Youth Alternative Society. And the purpose for that was to provide young people with an alternate pathway through the court system. So instead of going through the traditional justice system, there was an opportunity for them to do restorative justice. That opportunity extended to adults in 2016. And then as of July 2025, Community Justice Society ceased to be the organization delivering the formal restorative justice program. So now we're focused on prevention work. And we partner with schools, organizations, individuals, community members through a restorative lens, to provide education, program facilitation, and really just support to kind of teach people how to respond to conflict or harm in ways that doesn't create more conflict and harm. So that's kind of the purpose of what we're doing now. And really that we're partnering with police, with justice, with individuals, with schools and other organizations. And that's kind of what we do right now.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah. My name is Steve Trussoni, and I'm the Atlantic Regional Coordinator for Tetra Society of North America. Tetra is an organization that was founded 38 years ago in British Columbia by a gentleman by the name of Sam Sullivan. And when he was a young person, he was an athlete and he was skiing and had an accident and left him as a para or tetraplegic. So he didn't have the use of his limbs. So he was wheelchair bound, and he had a friend who assisted him by going into his home and providing him with switches and things that he could turn things on and off, closing the drapes, those kinds of things that he couldn't do himself, which gave him a lot of independence in his home. The idea caught on, and there began to be chapters across Canada, and it grew further from just an organization that's called Tetra that assisted people by making gizmos or modified adaptations, things like that. But it also went on to include, at least in British Columbia, adaptive sailing, adaptive sports organization, a leadership for people with disabilities group. Altogether, there's 5 different parts of this organization called the Disability Foundation. But Tetra takes up the largest part of it. Here in Atlantic Canada, we have chapters in each of the provinces, and we're growing. And the essential element of what we do is we have technical volunteers who make things for people who request them, who need to do something or want to do something and can't. And so it's a collaborative effort where the client is at the center of the project, and an occupational therapist or some other a caregiver or family member would be involved, let's say, sometimes as well. And a design is created from the idea, from what the problem is, and the technical volunteer will make a prototype and then have it fabricated once it's everything is working. And that's how we work. And there's no cost for materials for the project. up to $500, and all of the labor is free. Thank you.
All right, we can move on to our online panelists. Maybe Josie, you could start.
Sure, thank you. My name is Josie Lake, and I am the Social Impact Manager at Geo Nova Scotia. So a little bit about Geo Nova Scotia is that we are an organization founded in 2022 officially, but we are really a pandemic response. So when Matt Spurway, our founder, was working on some community projects and everything went online, they realized that it was only the project leaders that were there and the participants couldn't join. And that was due to a lack of technology in their home, a lack of internet connection, all surrounding digital barriers. So we identified those needs, found some grant money, and voila, Geo Nova Scotia was kind of born. And what we do is we work with nonprofit organizations around the province as our referral partners, and we open up a budget for them to refer their participants or their clients for digital support. So that could be devices, it could be internet connections, it could be skills, and we make those connections and overcome, excuse me, overcome those digital barriers to make sure that they can get online. And this is all free for the participant, 12 months of free internet connection. And then at that point, we have created a partnership with Eastlink to make sure that they get affordable internet moving forward based on lots of different criteria. So one of the big things with Geo is that we quickly identified that we didn't want folks to have to, again, contact a stranger and prove that they needed support. And that's why we make this connection with the referral partners or the nonprofits across the province. So we're somewhat of a hub, I guess, for nonprofits to be able to support their clients in digital needs.
Awesome, we can move on to Laura now. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Horn, and I'm the Executive Director of the North Grove. The North Grove is located in Dartmouth North, so pretty close to downtown Dartmouth and like where the ferry lands and all that. But we work in a community where the poverty rate is twice what it is in the rest of HRM. We know that almost half of the households in this community are single-person households. A lot of people are living alone. And we also know that the rate of non-permanent residence is about 3 times what it is in the rest of the city. So, you know, there's a lot of people in the community facing a variety of challenges. And really what we try to do is provide support specifically around food and around families. So the food support that we provide is really about bringing people together around food. We do everything from, you know, we do 4 free community meals every week. We have a farm. We do cooking classes for people of all ages, even little kids. And then in terms of family support, that looks like everything from play groups for children and parents to home visiting for families facing complex challenges. And so those are kind of our 2 main areas of focus. But we also have a third kind of pillar, which is really we recognize that we work in a community where there is so much need, there will always be a lot of need, but we aren't necessarily the best people to try to meet those needs. So we partner with a couple of dozen other organizations and service providers like Geo Nova Scotia to bring other services directly into community where people are. So we have everyone from like healthcare services to legal aid services to partners like Geo and other nonprofit organizations delivering services out of our North Grove space. We have just over 30 staff and we have over 170 community volunteers. So really the whole model is all about like community helping community and reciprocity and everybody kind of being in it together and really getting that social connection out of the work. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome, thank you. So for our next question, we'll start with Steve. So can you share a story that describes the impact made by your organization for an individual, the community, or the members that you serve?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Every project that we do is for an individual. So there's a story behind each one of the projects that we do. It's kind of hard to pick out any particular one other than the fact that I can say about this one is that It's about a child who was an 8-year-old at the time, who their father had filled out a online request for assistance form and for Tetra services, and he has cerebral palsy, and he also has an intellectual impairment. And what they wanted was he could take a few steps on his own, but that was it. He needed support from there on. And they lived in a mobile home, and they still live there. And there was a long hallway that they wanted him to be able to travel on his own independently eventually, but he needed a railing in order to support himself. So one of our volunteers went in and put in a railing, the entire length of the hallway, and that was fine. Everything was working well with that. The other request that they made was that they wanted to have a ramp so that he could independently go into the home. And so we were able to skirt some of the very specific requirements in building ramps because it was a mobile home. If it was a regular home, there's all kinds of requirements that are very expensive, actually, when you're trying to build something like that. So what we did, what our volunteer did, was he looked on Kijiji and found a ramp that someone wanted to give away. He took a look at it. It was in good shape, good enough shape, and he hauled the thing with a trailer over to the mobile home. I and my son helped in this project, and he had a friend of his as well, and we put the ramp back together again under the supervision of our tech volunteer, and it works great. He can go up and hold onto the railing and go right into his house. But the thing that really struck me about it was that the parent is very involved with videos of his son doing different activities as a person with a disability. And so there's YouTube videos showing his progress using the railing and the ramp as well, but particularly the railing, because the last one that I saw, this was 2 years ago, it was installed. The last one I saw was him independently walking the entire length of the stretch of his house, and yeah, that's pretty exciting to see. So, and I think when you talk about community, I think we really are, yes, a community, but each drop of water, in a pond represents part of the pond, and I think we work on that micro level. That's the thing of it, and it does affect the community. These different projects offer accessibility and independence for people who didn't have them before, and become more visible and more active in the general population. That has a big effect on the community. Thank you.
Awesome. Rebecca?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about, I was the caseworker assigned to a restorative justice referral, a post-conviction referral for an adult male referred to restorative justice. So he was referred by the court for sentencing recommendations, meaning there was either a finding of guilt or a guilty plea entered. And on its face, this file looked like an absolute brutal assault. But when I began to meet with this man and his family members and some other partners, the picture began to look much different. So this was a family who had been really essentially tortured by a small group of individuals. They had their home damaged repeatedly. They had their gas tanks filled with sugar. They had shots fired through bedroom windows in the middle of the night. Their sons were assaulted in community and at school. Brutal assaults where on one occasion, one of the sons suffered a broken leg. And the family repeatedly asked for help from the school, from HRCE, from police, and really didn't get the support that they wanted or needed. It reached a point where the school said, you know what, we're going to recommend that your sons not come back to school after March break because there's no way we can keep them safe. And so these individuals were not, were advised not to come back. They did return to school because education was a priority in that family, and they did everything they were told on this particular day. These individuals, although they had aged out or dropped out of school, they were still showing up there on a regular basis to harass, to intimidate, to invite violence. And these boys did what they were told to do. They were advised to stay together at all times by their family, which they did. They were advised to keep their hands to themselves. The client that I work with said that repeatedly, keep your hands to yourselves, stay out of it. So they did. And if you see these individuals, report to school administration and police, which they did. But on this occasion, they had done all of those things, but they called their dad and said, Dad, they're here and we're scared. And my client happened to be working from home that day. It was during that period of COVID. And they happened to live very close to the school. So he jumped in his car. He was at the school within about 90 seconds. And he made a very bad choice. He located those individuals. He smashed the windows out of their vehicles. And he assaulted an adult male who was in one of the vehicles. And so he was referred to us. The court knew that there was a guilty plea or a finding of guilt, but they were looking to us to help with sentencing recommendations for the judge. And so that's kind of where we convened a restorative justice process. And as we began to talk to people, we began to really understand how this family and the community, the school community and the community at large were impacted. We had a police officer who joined our conversations who said Halifax Regional Police have failed this family. And that was huge in that process. So we continued to work through the process. This was someone who, before I ever met him, had taken a lot of steps to kind of address things. He had done extensive therapy. He had done anger management. He had involved his children in all of those things. And he talked about, after this happened, he went home. His wife was in the shower when he left. And after this happened, he went home and he said to her, I'm in big trouble. I'm going to walk the dog. The police will be on their way to arrest me. And so I want you to know that this is what's going to unfold in the next few minutes. And he said as he was being arrested and taken away, he was looking at his sons who had witnessed all of this, and he wanted desperately to talk to them to say, that I made a really bad choice. I'm no kind of role model. Don't ever do what I've done, kind of thing. And the officers prevented him from having these conversations. And at the time, this was really upsetting for him because he didn't know what the next steps were going to look like. When he had an opportunity to sit with the police officer, the officer said to him, I prevented you from doing that because that would have been an admission of guilt. And I needed to not be present for those conversations. So we knew going into court, so it was my responsibility to detail all of this in a report back to the judge. And we knew going into court that there was a lot on the line. So this family, he lost his job. He was terminated from his job. The family moved out of Nova Scotia. They felt there was no way for them to stay there. The situation continued to escalate even after this. And, they had asked for help from everybody. So they really felt there was no choice but to leave Nova Scotia, which is what they ended up doing. He found a job in their new location, but that meant he knew if he had a criminal record as an outcome of this, that he would also be terminated from that job. We knew that jail time was a possibility. The Crown was referring to him as a vigilante and seeking severe punishment. And so it was my job to put all of this together in a package back to the court, and then ultimately the judge's decision on what this would look like. I talked to the lawyer the night before, and she said, you know, I think, Rebecca, the best we can hope for is that he comes away with some probation and a criminal record, which we knew would result in his termination from his job. We went into sentencing. We were there all morning. The judge referenced the report and asked questions and sought more information, and then we broke for lunch, went back into court in the afternoon. And the judge again read from the report and referenced the restorative justice process, and then advised the client that he was going to come away from this with no punishment and no criminal record. And that was more than I had hoped for, more than the lawyer had hoped for, and I think definitely more than he had hoped for. And that's because the restorative justice process humanizes people. It lets you tell the story where you otherwise probably wouldn't have that opportunity. And it allowed the judge to see kind of exactly what this family had been through. And so, you know, he credits the restorative justice process with this outcome. I credit him and the work he did, even leading into it. He was an excellent client to work with. But these are the kinds of things that are possible when all the pieces fit. And this was kind of an exceptionally positive outcome for us. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. We will move on to the online. Maybe we'll start with Laura this time.
Very moving to hear these stories. So at the North Grove, I mentioned that a key piece of our work is around family support. And we've been doing family support for about 30 years in the community. And that means as well that there are a couple of staff on our team who have been working with us for around about 25 of those years. And every year in September, we hold an event called the Annual Report to Community. And the idea with this is, instead of having, you know, inviting the community to like our AGM or something, we do a public event. We always have some live music and some food. And there are always a couple of community members who tell their story. And a couple of years ago, a mom, her name is Sam, got up and talked about her story of support at the North Grove. And it kind of went something like this. So she found out when she was about 16, she found out that she was pregnant. And that could be a very scary thing, right? And very isolating. And someone connected her with the North Grove. And she started coming to the North Grove and just had that sense, got that sense of community and support, and like there was kind of a system there to help her. And then she got to a much better place. She had her baby, and her life started, you know, working out the way she wanted it to work, and she sort of moved on to other things. But then 10 years later, she lost her partner and was struggling quite a lot. And by that point, had two kids, and was really struggling with mental health and feeling isolated. And she came back to the North Grove. And when she came in, there were staff there who remembered her name. And they said, "Hi, Sam. So good to see you again. How's it going? What's going on?" And so again, she kind of found at the North Grove, she found people who cared about her, people who were listening, a network of support. And when I think about our work, you know, in a community where people are facing multiple challenges, maybe somebody comes for a little period of time. Maybe it's even when they're a kid and they're coming with their parents. But the idea is you come when you need us, and then you might go away for a while and you might go do something else, and then you maybe come back. And having that continuity of people and familiar faces and familiar ways of working has been really important for families over the years. So that's my story.
Awesome. We'll move on to Josie.
Thank you. So I guess a big part of our work that really hits home when I get into conversations like this is that because we work with referral partners like North Grove, it's not often that we actually get to see the direct impact that is happening within the communities and within someone's life. So our partners get to see what that technology means to someone and how it's changing their lives. But oftentimes we over here at Geo, we don't get to see those. And then there's times when those stories kind of make their way back to us. So we know oftentimes, we're helping people who are fleeing domestic violence and they're in their moment, and we've provided that phone. And then that's kind of the end of the story for us. But then there's the odd times we do get the feedback, and it brings me back to I believe it was just about a year ago that a young gentleman in Cape Breton was in the woods, and he got stranded in a very precarious, life-threatening situation. He was trapped, and he was unable to reach his phone, a phone that he had just recently got. Because he was able to connect with Geo Nova Scotia. Search and Rescue was able to use that phone to track his location, and they were able to safely rescue him and get him before there was any impact and long injury. And it was just a really happy experience all the way around. But yet again, the only reason we found out was because it was kind of funny. The referral partner reached out and said, so this young man's phone got kind of wrecked when he was trapped, and can we get another one? And we're like, yes, we can. So often we don't think of technology being an essential need or a social determinant of health or critical, but it really is, and in more ways than one. Another was actually just yesterday, I answered a call in where we were providing a telephone and a mobile plan to a senior living alone in critical health who had fallen in his shower and was there all night by himself, had no way to call for help because he's had no phone, he's had no internet, no connection. And it's financial reasons. So there was no need for that. We were able to come up and say, here you go, and assist and make sure that he gets the technology and the connection that he needs to be safe. So in our work, we see that a lot. We also, though, have those partners coming to us and saying, listen, we're nonprofit and funds are tight and we want to have this program and we want to have a community hub in our location, or, we just need help paying our own bills. So through Geo for Nonprofits, which is a little bit of a social enterprise that we've come up with, we've been able to now support organizations as well. So we put our fingers in lots of different community projects, and we just sort of hang out in the background and help make things happen.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next question, and we'll make the online people go first this time. So we'll start with Laura. How did you come to work in a nonprofit? How has your education and experience led you to your current position?
So I'm one of these people where my education has nothing to do with what I'm doing now. I am originally a violinist. I trained as a classical violinist. And then I became interested in a model of music education called the El Sistema. It came originally from Venezuela. And the idea with El Sistema is really about bringing children together in an orchestra setting where they're all playing instruments together as a way to build community. And this is a model that started in Venezuela, but has been picked up all over the world. And so I became interested in that, and I had the opportunity to work on a program in Australia and then in Scotland. And I was in Scotland for almost 8 years. And when I started working at this Sistema program in Scotland, which is called Big Noise, if anyone wants to go look it up, very cool. When I started working there, I had kind of started on like a part-time contract and I wanted to pick up some extra hours. So I got some extra work doing some administrative work for the organization. And I'll never forget that there was kind of one building where all of the program staff were, like all the musicians who were doing the frontline teaching work in this program. And there was another building where the behind the scenes administrative staff were. So people working on finance and the CEO and people working on fundraising and operational pieces. And when I did my administrative work, I had to move from the program spot over to the more behind the scenes office. And when I started working in there, I had this moment of, oh, right. Like behind the frontline work, there's a huge operation happening to, hire staff, to pay people on time, to make sure that we have leases in place and everything is risk assessed, et cetera, et cetera. And so I kind of realized that behind every frontline organization there's all kinds of other stuff happening. And I eventually moved into a leadership position in that organization. And then when I moved back to Canada, I'm from Halifax. When I moved back to Canada during the pandemic, I continued to work in sort of nonprofit systems change kinds of organizations. And that kind of progressive leadership led me into this position now. I joined the North Grove about 3 years ago, first in a program director position, and then I became the ED only about a year ago. So I'm also new and learning. But that's a little bit about my story. And I think also just an example of no matter what you study, sometimes just life takes you on this journey and you can end up in cool places. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. And we'll do Josie next.
Yeah, I don't know that my life ever existed outside of nonprofit. Growing up and my young adult years, nonprofit organizations were always there somewhere. And usually I was the client, getting assistance as a single mom, or various different life experiences that led me to different organizations. That then led me to help assist me get into school and into education. And my education is exactly the nerd tech background that you would expect it to be. My diploma is in computer information systems and networking. So that's as nerdy as it gets. And throughout all of that, though, it was really important for me to volunteer and give back to those nonprofits that had helped me get to where I was. So then, my worlds aligned, I guess, when I seen that they were looking for digital facilitation instructors, and that's where it started. That's where I kind of used my computer skills to get into teaching digital skills. And then at that CLO, I found Geo and absolutely fell in love with the work that was going on there. And it was just a natural transition to come on to the Geo team when that opportunity arose. So I think it was more life than education that led me into nonprofit. But somewhere along the line, I just found ways to merge them.
Great. Thank you. Now we'll move on to in person. We can start with Rebecca.
So I completed both my child and youth study degree and my education degree at the Mount. And while I was completing my child and youth study degree, I did a placement at Bryony House. If you're not familiar with Bryony House, it's a transition house supporting women and children who are fleeing domestic violence. So I did a placement there and had the opportunity, the most amazing opportunity to meet some of the most incredible women. And really, I fell in love with the place, the people, and the purpose. And I managed to stay connected with them even after my placement was done. So they hired me as a summer student for a couple of years, and then they hired me as a casual employee. So I stayed connected during like university breaks or holidays. And then they hired me as a relief staff while I was completing my Bachelor of Education. And then I got to this kind of like funny little fork in the road where I graduated from education at a time where there weren't a lot of teaching jobs available. It was before things kind of opened up, and I got to this place where I was offered full-time work at Bryony House, or I was offered a term at a really great school where I'd been working. And they said to me, we're not sure how long the term is going to last, and the teacher's really missing his class, so he might want to sit in the back of the room. And that was really intimidating for me. As a new teacher, I thought, oh God, I don't know if I want to do that. And I was also newly married and wanting to start a family. And so I thought, I need something that feels secure, something that I know is going to pay the bills. And I also was just really drawn to Bryony House. And so I worked there as a children's counselor with the young people for 23 years. And it's hard work, but I adored it. And then in 2022, I decided I needed something a little bit different. I still wanted to be in a helping and supporting role, but I wanted to help in a different way. And so I transitioned to Community Justice Society at that time, and really just fell in love with that work. And I feel like the nonprofit, it's who I am. It's in me, it's in my blood, and I don't think I could do anything else. I just find the work is so meaningful. And that purpose is hard to find. Yeah, so that's how I ended up where I am.
Thank you. We'll do Steve.
Yes. Well, my career was, well, I started out like Laura. I guess I studied music and majored in piano, minored in oboe, and but then went on to education here at Dal. And but when I got my first big position, it was at the Sir Frederick Fraser School for the Blind, and that was where my career was centered. Over 35 years working with that organization, mainly as music teacher, but also as an itinerant teacher for blind visually impaired students in the Halifax area, teaching mobility, braille skills, things like that. But working at a residential school was an incredible experience. And as music teacher, music is a special thing for the blind and visually impaired. It's something that's very, very important for them to develop their hearing, and the location of sound when they're traveling, particularly. But just for the enjoyment of music, from what I can see, my students didn't have the same kind of biases regarding styles of music. They seem to be quite open to all kinds of music, actually. But that goes on and on. But the thing of it is that while I was there, we had wonderful support from our, at the time it was called the Ladies Auxiliary, but it was the APSI Auxiliary. The Sir Frederick Fraser School was part of an organization called the Atlantic Provinces Special Education Authority. And anyway, they were of great service when our music department needed instruments. I would write letters to them and ask them for support, and they were always there for us. But there were other times when I felt like, I can't always go to the same place for funding, so I would go out into the community. Lions Club, military police were very generous. When we wanted a big item in particular, we built a sound sculpture out in the back of our playground called Earth Wheel. That was quite a thing. And that involved engineering students from Dal, which was really exciting. We had 3 iterations and three groups of mechanical engineering students working on the mechanisms of this rotary devices set into the ground, a giant concrete pipe, and then set into the middle of it was a column, and attached to that was a wheel, a large 8-foot diameter wheel that was able to be turned. And as the wheel turned, there was a 2-to-1 mechanism gear that allowed for an arm to trigger percussion instruments inside of the column. And then there were these metal grates that were made by these NASCAR large metal grates to let the sound out of this concrete tube. And it was set into the ground and at the right height for people to be able to hold on to it and turn it. And so it was available actually to be used by the blind in particular, and also by wheelchair students too. They could just hang on to it and actually be able to travel with it as well, and move around it as long as they had somebody pushing behind them. But for the blind, it was an opportunity to move, and they could run with it if they wanted to. And it was clang, clang, rattle and bang, kind of boom, boom, all these different sounds. And they were free to move without fear of running into something, because a blind person, they really don't know. If you have your eyes closed, you really don't know if there's a pothole or a very large or a stairway or something that's going to be dangerous to you beyond what if you're in an unfamiliar environment. And that fear is greatly reduced when the students were able to travel around this wheel. They were having fun. It was a social kind of experience, and et cetera. The fundraising for that was done through the military police, and that was a big one for us. But anyway, when I retired and I got out of teaching altogether, and I went on to become a choir director locally here in Spryfield. But after that, during COVID, I quit the choir. The choir disbanded, and I was left wondering what I'm going to be doing. Now, when I was a music teacher in the classroom, I didn't just create this earth wheel, which was a collaborative kind of a thing, but I also made a number of modifications, adaptations to instruments to allow our students with cerebral palsy and such to be able to access percussion instruments in particular. And the goal was to allow them to express themselves. It wasn't necessarily to make an organized, pretty sound, but it was a chance to make sounds that they could hear, that they knew that they were the ones that made them. One interesting thing about that was that very often parents would come in with their kids, or I would look at reports. This was a residential school, so we had students staying for a variety of lengths of time. But some of the kids, they were nonverbal and such, young children, but they were reported in the reports that they were very sensitive to sound, and that if sounds went off or something, they would cry or scream out. And what I found was that when the kids had control of the sound, they were ready to go to town. They were quite happy to beat the band and all that. So, yeah, it's just an interesting observation I found. But during all that time, that's one of the reasons why I went out to the Lions Club or different places to get funds to be able to get the kinds of instruments and such that our students could have. So that's my background to jumping into Tetra, because it was a perfect fit. I'd had all this experience in assisting people with disabilities in my career, and that's exactly what Tetra does. So there's really not much more I can say about that.
Great. Thank you,
Thank you.
Steve. All right, for our next question, we'll start with Josie. So what do you like about your work? What do you dislike about it? And what do you find the most challenging?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can summarize it really into one question. I mean, I think most of us that work in nonprofit, we love the fact that we're able to assist someone. We're able to make an impact, whether it's directly or indirectly in the background. You know, as I mentioned, we don't often get to see the direct impact that participants have when they receive their phone or their computer or their connection. But just knowing that we are improving and helping and being there to support someone, I think at the end of the day, knowing that whether they know it's me or not, I was able to be there for someone and show up and support them. And all too often, that's just what we need. All we need is for just someone to show up and be there. So I guess, and that flip coin too is that, I guess I like to have that community connection. So I guess a part of the thing that I would say I dislike about my work is not being directly involved with the participants. I'm lucky that I get enough stories coming my way that it feeds that niche. And then, of course, also, with the Geo for Nonprofits, I am able to get out into the organizations and go and visit folks and meet people that way. The most challenging always is in nonprofit is the need for resources. I mean, you don't want to be the one to continue to say it, but that is that is the challenge, is making sure that the resources are there, the funding is there, and just being able to physically get the needs provided for folks. Yeah, it impacts you in different levels and in different ways when you're always asking for that funding. So I think for me that's probably the biggest challenge. And then again is that the need is always exceeding the resources, right? So not only does that mean you have to go looking for the resources, but there is going to be someone today that I cannot help. And that's really, really hard. Not that I can't help them tomorrow, because maybe I can, but today I can't help them. So that's a challenge.
Great. Thank you, Josie. And we'll move on to Laura.
So some of the things that I like about my job, I mean, I've worked in organizations that are a bit more removed from the frontline work, and I do like that I can like walk 10 steps out of my office and see someone who's directly getting help or eating a meal or talking to a staff member. And I love that kind of place-based feeling. Like I get in my car every morning and I know I'm driving to a place that is full of community and full of people who are getting and finding what they need. And there's something very hopeful and positive about that. I love working with other organizations in partnership and feeling part of a bigger system. And I feel like here in Halifax, we are fairly well connected. And I like that. And I like feeling like we can work together on different things. I also like in a leadership role, I get to work directly with staff and mentor new staff. And I enjoy that part of my work. Um, as Josie said, I mean, what I dislike and what I find challenging is that there's always growing need. There's always need you can't meet, and we're always trying to resource the organization so that we can meet the growing need. And I think that, you know, the good side of that is that nonprofit work we're very resourceful, right? Like we do have partnerships because we can't fund the whole thing, and we do, you know, lean on each other and try to stretch funding and do really creative things, I think, because we're in that situation. But that certainly is always a challenge, is thinking, you know, in my role I have to think about this year, but I also have to be thinking about next year and what about the year after that. And then another part that I find challenging is that, you know, in part because of the nature of those resources and because there's increasing need, we do have to set boundaries around what we can and can't help with. And also, you know, in my role, I have to make decisions about what we're going to do or how we're going to work. And any decision, like not everyone's going to agree with it. It's just a fact. We're not going to get total consensus on everything. And so sometimes, you know, often I have to have conversations that don't feel comfortable, right? And I continue to find that challenging. And I think that's always like just a muscle that we have to keep kind of working on and exercising.
Thank you, Laura. Steve, what about yourself? Oh, microphone.
Okay, I'm on. Yeah, I mean, what do I like about my work? I think the important thing about work for an adult is that it should be playful. I mean, the work is the play of adults, really. That's why I feel. Just the reverse of children playing, learning, and learning. We're learning by working. And anyway, as far as the actual position that I hold, it's I guess I worked up from a chapter coordinator here in Halifax to the Atlantic Regional Coordinator, and when I was the chapter coordinator here, I was able to work directly with the volunteers and felt quite close with the clients and their representatives by contact them and keeping in touch with them. That was a real important part of connecting with the community and such. But as the regional coordinator, I've had these different roles now that where I have issues that come up in the different areas, and I'm asked to try to solve them. And then our organization has we have our head office in Vancouver, and so we have also a national volunteer coordinator in Ontario, and who is my direct supervisor. But so we have lots of opportunities when we have difficulties and we don't know the answers to talk to people with more experience, and that's very helpful. So, yeah, but my job itself, I think, is very varied. It involves fundraising. It involves making sure there's an equilibrium with the amount of volunteers we have available and the number of clients who request assistance. Trying to keep those balanced so that we don't have volunteers in our organization where they don't feel like they've got anything to do. And then if they feel that way, we're going to lose them. And also the other way is we have clients who don't have anybody helping them in a timely manner, and that's difficult as well. And then there's the whole fundraising issue, and that's something that my job involves as well. So trying to juggle those balls is quite a challenge. And as far as the things that I don't like about I guess it's the paperwork. Yeah, I mean, it's not overbearing or anything like that, but it's like, I just would really rather be working with and for people and, solving those kinds of problems and try to create new ideas or follow up on new things. But yeah, filling out the reports every month and that kind of thing. But I do like the meetings, though, I have to say. And I think that really is an important part of it. Part of our organization is that we meet a lot amongst ourselves nationally, online, and the regional coordinators meet together as well. And then the regional, well, the coordinators in the Atlantic province, I meet with them, but also I meet with the national coordinators. We have one for the prairies, one for BC, one for Ontario, and one for Atlantic provinces, or Ontario and Quebec, I should say. Yeah. Oh, there we go. There's my answer. Thank you.
Great. Rebecca?
In terms of what I really like about my work, I'll start by saying the work matters. So whether you're kind of working to prevent harm or support healing or strengthen communities, the purpose is really tangible, and that's hard to replace. The work aligns well with my personal and professional values. It's been my experience that you build very strong relationships in nonprofit work. With colleagues, with community members, with partners. Your teams are often small and you're working toward a shared purpose, and that really creates a sense of belonging. Because resources are limited, it's been my experience that you gain a broad skill set. So you're kind of asked to fill in and cross over in various roles. And I learned a lot by doing that. I also think the leaders in nonprofit. So I had the privilege of working under Kathy Love at Briney House and now for Barb Miller at Community Justice Society. And both of those individuals lead with empathy and care and compassion. And this creates a workplace that values people over profit. And that also is something that's hard to find. And finally, a sense of contribution. So nonprofit work for me kind of becomes part of your identity, and not in a bad, all-consuming way, but as a matter of pride. In terms of what I don't like about it, chronic funding insecurity. I think we've kind of talked about that. Burnout is real when you're working with people in crisis and who have experienced trauma. And there's not a lot of resources. The workloads can be high. And so it's really important to kind of take care of yourself. Relative to people's skill sets and experience, I think the pay can be low and there are limited benefits sometimes. It's also been my experience that overwork is kind of characterized as commitment. So, you know, if you really care, if you really want to make a difference, you'll kill yourself trying to do that. And so that also is something that comes to mind for me. And finally, limited career pathways. So in nonprofit, it's been my experience, there's not a lot of room to advance up the ranks unless you're going kind of from frontline to management. There's not a lot of room there for that kind of movement. And finally, what I find most challenging is that nonprofit work asks you to care deeply in systems that don't always care back. And so for me, it's not the work. I love the work. The work is beautiful, but it's the conditions under which the work is being done.
Great, thank you. So we are kind of close for time, so maybe we can do one last question quickly, and then we'll get some questions from some students. So what advice could you share with a student at the start of their career in the nonprofit sector? And maybe we'll start with Steve this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to get involved in nonprofit, you want to start early. And I think everybody's been told that, do something voluntarily in the community. Be a volunteer in the community so that you can put it on your resume. But I think if you even just doing that, you're going to find out more about yourself and what you can, how good it feels really to help other people. It's a kind of a gene or something that we all have. We want to help people. And to have the opportunity to do that is very important. That would be the main thing I would say. The other one is that I think it's been already said by Rebecca. I know that just now, but how, you have to love the work. The pay isn't that great, that kind of thing like that. But the folks that volunteer with my organization, many of them are young students. We have a group of Dalhousie students, they're engineering students, who are who have a club, and they're working on 5 projects right now. And we have in our community a number of younger workers who want to volunteer and do something beyond their work. So they're involved as well. But we also find that probably the largest component really are retired people who have worked in industry or business in some capacity, but have skills, technical skills, and they want to keep on using their hands. They want to keep on using their brains. And they've done this all their career, and they find that a place like Tetra, for instance, is a place that they can do that. We also have outreach volunteer possibilities too, where people will go around and distribute information or make presentations about Tetra to let people know who we are and what we do, and that's helpful. Well, but for the youngsters out there, who are just studying or thinking about a career in this area, I think, it just depends on where your path, what path you travel, and what you find along the way, and how you respond to it. So just to be sensitive, listen to yourself, and listen to your feelings, or listen to yourself and your feelings about what kind of work, what kind of human being you want to be, how you want to contribute to society, those kinds of things, general things like that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Maybe we'll jump to Laura online.
So I would say if you're interested in a career in nonprofit, or you're just on the start of your kind of career journey, become really curious about how all the different parts of an organization work, and spend as much time as you can with subject matter experts. I learned so much from working with an HR specialist, a finance specialist, a fundraising specialist, and just like learning and being near those experts is very helpful. And then finally, I would just advise you to like follow your energy. Once you understand how it all works, follow where the energy is for you. You don't have to have the whole plan. The world is changing so quickly that plans don't always happen the way you think they're going to. So think about what energizes you and spend as much time doing that as you can.
Great. Thank you. Josie, for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I agree. Find that passion, find the energy, be genuine, be genuine in your intentions, be genuine in the work that you're doing. Don't be afraid to own a mistake. Just be genuine and make it right. Really work on those. I know yes, the technical skills and the professional skills are important, but work on those soft skills, the patience, the humility, inclusivity. Uh, Make sure that, equity matters to you. If you're going to work in nonprofit, you need to, be able to embrace all of those things and again, do it with a genuine heart. Um, excuse me, because one thing that will show up very quickly are people who are there for a false reason or with false intention. So find the work that matters to you, and follow that path in whatever way it takes you. Be open to change. And I can't, I mean, I don't know if there's a nonprofit that has been around for a long time who's doing exactly what they've done when they started. But I would hazard a guess that it has evolved or it has changed, because that is the nature of survival for nonprofit, is you have to be adaptable. So work on those skills. But my biggest thing is please be genuine. Just treat people with respect, and you'll get places. It'll take you far in life and as a whole.
Great. Thank you. And lastly, Rebecca.
Yeah, so I would echo what the other panelists have said, but also I encourage young people to go into nonprofit work. Progress in nonprofit is uneven and it happens very slowly, and we need young people to kind of pick up and take over for us. The people in nonprofit, it's an aging workforce, and we need young people who want to come in and kind of take over. And finally, I think I would say spend time, find someone at an organization, at a nonprofit who's willing to sit and talk with you. Spend time with those people. That's what I did in my early days at Bryony House as a student. That is invaluable. Learn about the history of the organization, talk a little and listen a lot. That would be my advice. Just really understand the grassroots history of where things started, and how you can find your place in that organization. Those conversations will serve you throughout your entire career.
Great. Thank you. And now we have about 5 minutes left. If anybody has any questions, online people too. Anyone in the room? Crickets.
If somebody's interested in nonprofit, how would they go about knowing, I guess, the direction that they want to go in terms of how to volunteer, who to contact? Are there websites for students to view? Are there places they can say, hey, I want to come and have a coffee and have a chat? How would a student go about finding out that information?
Yeah, there's a site called Volunteer Connect. Also, each province has a volunteer, Nova Scotia volunteer PEI site as well, that you can list, or you can, as an organization, you can ask for if anybody's interested in volunteering and whatever it is that you're looking for. There's several other ones out there as well, but those are the two main ones that we use. And Indeed is another one too. I think that you would put something out. I know it's not for paid positions necessarily, but we do use it for things like our coordinator positions because they are paid, but the volunteers, I would think that would be another way of getting out there. Yeah.
And if you have an interest in a specific organization, like I know you can find volunteer opportunities on our website, and it will direct you to contact a certain person to arrange to have those conversations. And I think that's probably true for a lot of the nonprofits.
Any other questions? If not, I guess we'll wrap it up here 2 minutes early. We want to thank the panelists very much for coming and the students for joining as well. If you are in the Learning Passport program, please ensure that you, oh, sorry, we got one question. An online question. So do those provincial websites act almost like Indeed, or is it more of a list of opportunities?
It's a list of opportunities. And, it's all the contact information is there. The length of time usually that they're looking for. But you, as a seeker, would be able to register with these organizations and put your own information in there as well. And who you are, how old you are, how long you want to volunteer for, in what area. And then I believe you get information of anybody who's volunteering, who's looking for volunteers. They will contact you if it looks like you're in their bailiwick, I believe. But either or, you would be able to keep tabs with the website to see what comes available and be able to apply.
Yeah, and to add to that
Great,
too,
thank
Steve,
you.
volunteer ns.ca. There's also resources there that can help you build your skills and answer some questions that you may have about volunteering. So that's the Volunteer Nova Scotia, volunteerns.ca. It's a great website.
Great. Well, oh, you got a thank you from online. Well, thank you everyone for coming. Thank Laura and Josie for joining online and our panelists in person. And if you are in the Learning Passport program, you have 48 hours from now to do your survey if you'd like your Learning Passport point.